another one.
Considering a switch from page object model to functional programming for QA, seeking opinions and experiences. At work, we are currently using the page object model for QA, but my engineering manager has suggested switching to functional programming. What do you think about this? I'm curious to hear your opinions and experiences with both approaches in the context of quality assurance. All right. This is a very, very good question. I remember when I started a job where I was working on as part of the software development team doing the QA automation, right? And I did my automated tests and everything like that. And I'm like, all right, let me submit because like the developers would always submit code reviews and all that type of stuff. And I submitted a code review, and these developers had never seen automated tests before. That was probably the last code review I ever submitted to them because they started with all these suggestions and stuff like that. And I'm like, and me doing automation for a very long time, I was like, do I have to explain like every single reason why this is not going to work? Like why it would work for you as a developer, but why it's not going to work as automated, like as QA engineering, writing automated tests to test your code, right? So suggestions that they give is like how they would write their development code. And I'm like, but I'm not writing development code. I'm using this to test your functionality, right? Your output. So that little story to say that some of the worst advice that I've gotten from some of the worst advice I've gotten on how to do QA, emphasis on QA automation, has been from developers, right? Because they have their ways of working, but QA engineering is not the same thing as software engineering, right? We can still use the same concepts and the same models and stuff like that, but the mindset behind it is not the same. So the engineering manager might have a totally valid point on why his or her developers should be using functional programming and approach to the code, right? But when it comes to QA, the tried and tested model of the page object model, for QA, like it works. Organizing your functions and your selectors and all that type of stuff in regards to the page that it belongs to. And that's why you have to be very careful about the feedback that you get from developers when it comes to writing automated tests. And so I'll give you an example, right? If I'm writing like a loop statement and the developer says, oh, okay, this is like there's something about this loop statement here or there, or you can do it a better way like this. Great, right? But when the developers come and they want to restructure the whole industry of how automation is done, then you're like, all right, take a step back. You got to take a step back at that point, right? Because developers will always, my time around? Nope. Developers will always they're gonna suggest the way that they do it to you, right? Because automation testing is very foreign to them, right? See, I'm lucky enough that the developers that I work with now, they are very test minded and test oriented, and that they even contribute to the automated test themselves, right? But when you have developers who do not write any automated test, the most that they know about testing is like probably their unit test, then you're going to have this type of confusion that happens where you get like the engineering manager, not the QA engineering manager. You get the engineering manager who is suggesting the practices that they have in their test. Because if that's the case, they might as well just write the automated test themselves as well, right? Because the way that they do it, they approach the development code is not necessarily the way that you're going to be approaching the automation code. All right. So, and I've dabbled in functional programming, like when just learning programming on its own, and I'm like, oh, would this work for? And I'm like, can I apply this for QA? And it just becomes more of a hassle. Like when you're coding, right, and when you're writing, especially when you're writing automated tests, you have to think of the goal in mind, and the ways. So there's many ways to achieve that goal, right? But what's the best way? What is the most logical way? What is the most efficient way? And as of now, I would still lean on the page object model being the most efficient way to neatly organize and structure your automation code, so you can easily know where everything goes, how to quickly get to something that needs to be updated, and just save time and hassle. And you know, one question I would ask, like, and here's the thing, like, as QA engineers, right, get into the habit of listening, and then when you think you've heard enough, then you listen some more. And when you're about to ask a question, you listen one more time. And the first thing out of your mouth is not an explanation, but it's a question. So if they say, oh, we should switch to functional programming, right? Okay. The question is, okay, what would be the benefit that we get out of switching to this, right? Like, what's the benefit of switching to functional programming for automated tests? And then you listen and you ask more questions, and at some point it might expose that they probably don't know much about automation or how the automation that you do is working, and then you have the opportunity to explain it. So after you do all that listening, then you can start to share and explain. All right, but as of now, I would say that you would probably want to stick to your page object model, unless you are provided with a good reason on why switching to functional programming and redesigning, reengineering all your automated tests would be beneficial. All right. So great question as always.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.
Enigmatic Joker.